The beauty of the locked off shot. That's what today's video is about. This is a bit of an extension from the video I did last week, which was hold your damn shot longer. This is kind of similar in the sense that it's a shot that you're going to do that's going to be a longer shot, a thing that's going to really play out. But what I'm talking here is a static shot and the beauty of a static shot. One that's just, camera on a tripod, or maybe it's handheld, but really with no movement or very little movement, and you're just locked off on a scene. And how beautiful this can look, and how well this can work to play for your story or what you're capturing to really come across. And with today's style of shooting, with all gimbals and drones and all types of tools that I love to use, and I use a ton of, we typically do a ton of motion, a ton of movement, and we're using that to really make things exciting or kind of help tell our story. And this can work really well in a lot of situations. But just going back to this beauty of a locked off shot, and that it can be, again, air quotes, more cinematic, one of my least favorite words, but I'm going to use anyways, the cinematic shot. I started really thinking about this and kind of thinking about capturing some more locked off shots after watching a documentary that I love. It's linked below. It's called The Salor. You can watch it for free on YouTube. It's on a couple other locations. You can watch it as well. I'm going to link to that in the description as well. And it's a beautifully done documentary film. Follows along with a gentleman that's living on a sailboat, that's in an elderly part of his life, and kind of going through a lot of story that way and chronicles of his life. And what I was really noticing, really captured me with this film, was that the majority of it is just these beautiful locked off scenes. There's really no camera movement in the movie. It's just these beautifully composed locked off shots. And what this allows you to do is really get immersed in the footage. You really get to be able to, kind of look around at what you're looking at, the setting they're in, and get a feel for it. And it plays out long. It can kind of feel sometimes like this is a slow pace to some of the things, and it maybe is a bit of a slow paced film, but it's beautifully done. And it got me thinking a lot more about that style of shooting. I mean, pre kind of gimbals or things that way where you had to use a steady cam, and when cameras were really big, and still for cinema stuff, a lot of times when cameras are really big, I love doing some shots that are just locked off. I can look at some old footage I have that really plays out beautifully, and it's just these great scenes. A locked off shot is really, really important. And I talk about this, an importance, of a tripod, and a good tripod, and why a tripod I think is really a key tool to have as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker, as somebody who's doing creative work or doing corporate work. Your tripod is probably, I would say, one of your number one tools. And having a good tripod with a good head that you can move smoothly, but also something you can really just lock off these shots and get these beautiful shots that way. And I think about some other films you've seen where they just have these beautiful landscapes, these beautiful shots that are playing out, that there's nothing really crazy happening in the shot in a sense of camera movement. It's the scene itself. It's the way that they're framing that scene. It's the way that they're blocking the actors within the scene that's really helping to play it and help it to tell its story. And there's just beauty in this. And so it's just really, again, changing our mindset a bit, something to focus on, be like, hey, I'm going to concentrate on getting a bunch more footage where I need to be locked off. A lot of times when I'm capturing B-roll, and kind of what I talked about in my last video about holding your shot longer, so I'm catching B-roll for, say, a corporate video or for an industrial training video. If I'm working with a gimbal and moving around with a gimbal, I'll typically always make sure I have a camera on a tripod as well. And I'm getting other shots that are just static, locked off shots, as well as those gimbal movement shots. For one, it's easier to hold on a shot longer, and sometimes you just need that static shot in there. One of these things isn't better than the other. A gimbal or a tripod, neither are better. They just both have different looks and different ways of doing things. And I think because we have such great access to these tools that we can use for movement now, that we've kind of really pushed more in that way. It's almost the same thing with like shallow depth of field. It took forever for video to get shallow depth of field back, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, before the 5D Mark II. It was really tricky to get shallow depth of field. And then we all started getting shallow depth of field, and I was like, I had this as a problem too. I just shot everything as shallow depth of field, everything as a super shallow depth of field, everything I could. And sometimes you don't need a shallow depth of field. Sometimes you need a really deep, field of view where everything's in focus, and that plays out and is beautiful that way. So it's knowing when to use these tools and not overusing these other tools. And sometimes simple is better. And a lot of times for your stories and telling beautiful stories, simple a lot of times is better. So thanks so much, guys. Let me know what you think about this video. Let me know about what you think about this content. Leave some comments below. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you can think of subscribing to the channel, that'd be great. And we'll see you on the next one.